Will Igor Shesterkin get back to his MVP caliber season like he did back in 2021, 2022 when he was the Vezina winner, the best goalie in the league? And it really, let's be honest here, it wasn't even close. This guy is absolutely an elite goaltender. He's a top three goalie. If you don't think he's at least a top three minimum goalie, I think you have something against Igor, because truly and honestly, if you look at his numbers from this year's playoffs, last year's playoffs, the previous couple regular seasons, it kind of shows that he is clearly and objectively at least a top three goaltender. I think minimum a top two kind of guy. I think over the last couple of years, Vazzy has taken a bit of a step back. I still think he's a great goaltender, and if you want to say he's in the top two, I 100% agree. But if we're looking at kind of just the last 2 years specifically, I think it is kind of down to Sorokin and Igor, and I would give the edge to Igor. If you want to call me biased, obviously most of us here are Rangers fans because it's a Rangers channel, but still, I do think that Igor over the last couple of years at least has been the just kind of clear better goalie. I think it's close. I think, Ilya and Andre are very close, but I do think that Igor kind of tops the cake there with those stats. You take a look at the stats here and stuff. I just think over the last couple of years, he has kind of proven to be the at least top two, top three goaltender in the league, if not the best, which I think he is. Taking a look at the goals saved above expected, though, from this year's regular season, when Igor did have a pretty clear down year, like he had a bad year for his standards, and he still had 28.1 goals saved above expected, which finished fifth in the entire league, right? So he wasn't even too far off the fourth place guy, who was Connor Hellebuck, who had 30.8. Then Ilya Sorokin at third place, who had 38.7. You have Linus Ullmark at 42.4 in second place, and then UC Saros, who is, I would say, probably the fourth best goalie, or the fifth. You could argue him or Hellebuck for that fifth spot, but I do think that UC Saros is an amazing goaltender as well, and he finished first with 46.7. But if you take a look when it matters most, in the playoffs, for example, this year, Igor finished second, and that was with only playing 7 games, okay? You had a guy like Bobrovsky who played 19 games, right, and had a 16.3 goals saved above expected, who finished first place. Igor had 7 games played, so he had a whole lot less than half the games played, almost 3 times less the amount of games played, right? And he still had 8.8, so he had over a goal saved above expected per game. Bob had just under, almost 3 goals under. So I think that kind of shows that. Obviously, maybe, we move on in the second round there and beat the Devils in Game 7. Maybe he goes down below a goal saved above expected per game, but I think that kind of shows how good Igor was, even with having a couple of games where he kind of wasn't, at his top of his game, for example. I think he still showed that he is an absolutely elite goaltender. The third place guy had 16 games played and had 7.7. So that kind of shows, which was Aiden Hill, by the way. But that just kind of shows how good Igor was in such a small sample size compared to the other guys. He was absolutely amazing in that Devils series, and he definitely was not the reason why we lost. I mean, the offense was really kind of the reason why a lot of guys didn't show up, but that is a whole nother video. I'll probably have another video kind of talking about that disappointing playoff run before we start this year, because it's definitely something to take note of. But overall, though, I think Igor is obviously a fantastic goaltender. When you take a look at the previous year's numbers, when Igor won, the Vezina Trophy, he was first in goals saved above expected in the playoffs and obviously the regular season. So again, Igor is an absolute elite goaltender. If you don't think he is, I don't know what you're on, because Igor's just great. I'm a big fan of Igor. Obviously, I'm a Rangers fan, so I'm going to be a fan of Igor. But these numbers here, when I read them off to you, you might be a little shocked if you haven't looked at them yourself, because he was by far the best goaltender in 2021, 2022. Okay, so we had 34.1 goals saved above expected. You look at the second place guy, Vasilevsky, 28.4. Okay, so that's not the craziest gap, right? Just under 6 goals saved above expected between the two, which isn't the biggest gap in the world. It is pretty big, but not the biggest. But Igor had 10 less games played. That is absolutely insane that Igor had almost 6 more goals saved above expected in 10 less games than Vazzy. So that is a big difference there when you take into account the games played. So that obviously factors in. But I think it helps, Igor's kind of case there being that he played less games by 10, which is quite a bit for a goalie, right? Most goalies are playing, 60 to 50 kind of games, and Igor was on the low end of that, while Vazzy was on the high end of that. So obviously, Igor had the best year by far that year, not even close, which is where he won the Vezina, obviously. And then in that playoff run, too, he was the best goaltender in that playoff run as well. Now, yes, Vazzy went on to the third consecutive Stanley Cup final. But I think in that series, Igor was the better goaltender. But overall, Vazzy's a great goalie. Ilya Sorokin's a great goalie. Hellebuyck's a good goalie. Saros is a good goalie. Igor is a good goalie as well. All five of those guys, I think, are the clear top five, with Ottinger really right. They're knocking on the door for sure. I think Ottinger is a fantastic goalie as well. But overall, I do think that going into this year, I think Igor has a decent chance of winning another Vezina here. I think he's going to get back on track here, get back towards that MVP caliber form. I don't think he's going to win the MVP because it's insanely hard for a goalie to win an MVP award, but I do think that Igor will at least finish top 3 this year in Vezina voting and have another stellar year and hopefully take this New York Rangers team onto a deep, long playoff run. But I do think that overall, last year his numbers were a .916 save percentage with a 2.48 goals against. The previous year when he won the Vezina, a .935 save percentage with a 2.07 goals against average. Honestly and truly, I do think that Igor will get back more towards that .930 save percentage than he was towards that .916 kind of thing. If I had to guess right now and project, I'll say like a .928 save percentage, something around there, like high 920s with a 2.2, 2.3 kind of goals against average, something around there is definitely quite realistic for Igor Shesterkin this year. I do think that, like I said, he will finish probably in the top 3 for Vezina voting again, like he did back in 2021, 2022 when he won the Vezina Trophy. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you guys have, please smash the like button and definitely comment down below your guys' thoughts on what do you think we're going to see out of Igor this year, because personally, I think we're going to see another Vezina caliber year out of Shesterkin.